It's time to dust off that resume. This is the focus group.
It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
Bueller.
Laugh. And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is the focus group with Tim Bennett.
Staunch.
And John Nash.
Keep your clothes looking neat and clean.
We're all business. Except when we're not.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the focus group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John Nash. Hello, Mr. Nash. How are you?
Mr. Bennett.
I believe in some places or some people, if you're listening to us when we're released on Wednesdays, it's St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. Or some people hear us later. I know in Palm Springs we're on Friday now, aren't we? The iHub network.
I call this the amateur holiday. Actually, many New Yorkers call St. Patrick's Day the Day of Amateurs.
The Day of Amateurs. Or amateurs. Is it amateurs or amateurs? I know you like to change language lately, I've noticed.
I'll say amateurs. How's that? Okay. Amateurs.
Hey, so I teased in the beginning. So if you're new to the show, or just so you know what our format is, John and I do our little chat up front, and then of course we share a caught my eye story, and then we'll tell you what we found at Deep Discount this week. We've got a special movie John's going to share with you. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll do our business birthday. And then at the end of the show, we handle some shop talk, which usually revolves around career and business. And this week, we're going to talk about some things that you need to, at least the experts say, that you need to remove from your resume immediately if you're dusting it off. Or I know many people right now with the event are either looking for work or trying to find work or trying to find new work or trying to figure out what the new normal is going to be. Right, John?
Completely. So, you and I discuss it every day.
Yeah, these are some ideas on what you need to do for your resume. I guess I agree with most of them, but we'll discuss that later on in the show. So if you want to move forward, you can go toward the end of the show in the last few minutes, or last probably 15 minutes, and just listen to the resume talk. But otherwise, we think you should stay for the whole thing.
Yeah, if you skip ahead, you'll be missing this classic headline that I found from our local paper over the weekend. The article was nowhere near as exciting as the headline, but here we go. Local bust nets drugs, firearms, and a monkey.
What?
Local bust nets firearms, drugs, and a monkey.
Oh, poor monkey.
Yeah, I think it was well cared for, but it was illegal to have. I'm not sure about the ability to have monkeys as pets. I don't really know if that's kosher or not, but I just flipping through the paper. It's the last thing I expected to see on our local paper upstate was, the drugs and the firearms. I'm not surprised about. That could be any town, USA. I don't mean to insult anybody, but that seems to be something you would not be so shocked by. But adding the monkey onto that, there you go.
Did they say where the monkey? What town was it? Did they list the town or?
Yeah, it's called Austerlitz.
Austerlitz. And so I wonder how old the monkey was.
They didn't say. And as I
said, what did they do with the monkey? Did they take it to the zoo? What did they do with the monkey?
Animal protection came and picked up the monkey. The minky.
I feel sorry. I know that was a big thing in the 70s or 60s. All those sitcoms used to always have a monkey. Would roller skate or Carson or any of those variety shows. They always dress the monkey up and come out with a diaper on and skate or do whatever they would do. I think about it now. It's horrible.
There's two sides of that coin, as with most stories, and you would talk to the handlers and the people that train them, and they're loved, they're well cared for. But I see what you're getting at. The perception of them as show animals. It didn't jive with how people felt about one of the most intelligent species on the planet besides us and dolphins, I guess. So. Yeah, I think you might be in the right there. I think their use diminished correctly over time as show items, right?
I know it's hard to get animals. I know one time I was doing a commercial not that long ago. We were trying to get a moose. There's only one moose that works in Hollywood, and it's hard to get.
Seriously?
Yeah, we were looking for a moose, and so we had to change to a deer. It was easier to get a deer, but a moose was tough to get, and the moose was booked, and the moose could only work a certain amount of days. So the script needed to be rewritten for a deer.
That meant you had to have a moose handler.
Yeah, I was working with LL Bean.
Wrangler. Yeah, sorry, it's a Wrangler. They call them Wranglers,
handler,
right?
And the spot it was for LL Bean needed to be rewritten with a deer rather than the moose.
I think I
And
remember
I
that
think
when the moose
had
was
to
going to
come from
be
Canada.
the moose was going to be like in the road, and the car's variable headlights or something was going to detect it, and it would be saved, or
It was hilarious though. There's only one moose. There's only one moose available in Hollywood. So
We
I
had
think,
a pharmaceutical pharma shoot years and years ago out in California, and we had a dog cast to be part of the team. And the dog was oh my God, the dog was adorable and so well trained. But the dog came with a wrangler. You had the animal and the wrangler, and the dog could only be on set for a little while. Then the dog had to go off with the wrangler and play and have some water. But my God, that dog took direction better than people. Could the dog turn its head a little bit, and the wrangler would move a little bit, and the dog's head would move. It was great.
That's like, I did that reality show. Gosh, when we were still on Sirius XM, I did that reality show with Trixie, my little puggle, who is no longer with us, which many people posted on Facebook. So thank you. But, that's a side story. But she, we did that reality show for 8 weeks, and she had a trainer that came in to help her, and she was a champion. I actually felt sorry for her by the end of the day because they would make her do
she was being
all
run
kinds
ragged,
of ridiculous things. What's that?
She was being run ragged by the trainer.
Well, they would purposely set her bowl to make her run for her food like she was starving and certain things, which I felt was kind of mean because she did have food issues as her daddy did. But I didn't think she needed to be running to her food bowl. And they would hide things in the bottom of the bowl to make it look like she was moving her food around to get to these, like just throwing her food all over. And then they would make the floor slippery so she would fall. And I said, she's going to hurt herself.
They would actually do that. They actually did that.
They made the floor, they took the rug up so she would slide. And then finally I just said enough.
I do remember when you called me once. You were in the bathroom. You had
my God, remember that?
Barricaded yourself in the bathroom.
The whole shoot.
Yeah, and you were like, this has got to stop.
I of course should have known. I had the mic on, and I called John. I went to the bathroom, and I called John, and I went off on how bad this was. And one of the PAs, the personal assistants, knocking on the bathroom door is like, Tim, like the 30 of us can hear you. You're on mic. And then the director comes in and goes, I think we're done for the day. Because I was like, John, I can't believe I got into this. They're ruining my house. They've moved all my furniture around. They want me to paint walls. They're putting me in clothes that are size medium. I haven't worn medium since 5th grade. They want my stomach to look fat. Trixie's running around. She's going to hurt herself.
You were near tears.
Like, throw them out. Throw them out.
You were near tears. It was really crazy. Yeah.
Throw them out of the house. Throw them out of the house.
Oh, my. Days gone by. Hollywood's calling, Tim. Days gone by.
Of course, then the show didn't get picked up.
No.
I lost weight. Trixie lost weight, but the other woman here that was doing the show with me, she gained weight. She was sneaking out apparently through the drive-thru at McDonald's getting Big Macs with her dog.
She's cheating.
They ended up gaining 6 pounds.
She's cheating.
Anyway, so what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
All right. This one really did catch my eye, and I think it's going to probably catch other people's too. The headline is, let me call this up here. Okay. Ooh. The Texas Rangers will stop hypnotizing people, raising a lot of questions. All right. The Texas Rangers are arguably the most famous law enforcement unit in the country. They're kind of like the stuff that Hollywood myth is made of. They're rugged, they're tough, the whole bit. Recently, the department announced that they were going to suspend the use of hypnosis. Now, you have to say to yourself, when were they using hypnosis, right? So it's not like they could pull someone over on a traffic stop or look into my eyes or they have a coin. Who knows how they did this? Turns out, though, that they used hypnosis a great deal in their interrogation techniques to yield better results. And it turns out that, I'm repeating myself, but nearly 2,000 times since 1980 and as recently as this past October, testimony gained under hypnosis has been actually used in criminal trials. So the Rangers are going to now suspend this, but it hasn't had a neutral effect on things. For example, in 2016, in a different state that used hypnosis, the Virginia Supreme Court freed Keith Allen Harward after DNA evidence exonerated him for a 1982 rape and murder case. He'd already served 33 years of a life sentence based in part on the identification of a security guard who it was later determined had been placed under a hypnotic trance. So, in a nutshell, they're using hypnosis to interrogate people that then those statements are then used against them in a court of law, and sometimes people did not know that the hypnosis was part of their interrogation process. And what do you think of this one?
Did it say how they did this? Like, did they have? So they must have had a. So it wasn't the law. It wasn't the officers per se. Then it was the. They must have had a person that was a hypnotist that would come in and interrogate with them. Then
It says here the agency explained that adding or the use of hypnosis in criminal investigations ended. The change comes but it is the Texas Rangers, the organization, or the the cops that are doing this, and it is in when someone's arrested and they're brought to the station and they're interrogated. They often, in some cases, they would feel they might not be getting the true story or the complete story, so they would have someone come in, put them under hypnosis, and ask facts again. And that actually pertains to witnesses too. So you didn't have to be the criminal. You could have been the witness that might have been hypnotized and given a feedback on this. Don't you think this is just a little tiny bit weird?
well, yeah, I mean, but I think, I immediately think of it something like you would see on a, you're getting sleepy,
Yeah.
You're going to tell me who robbed the bank, who robbed the bank, who robbed the bank. I mean, is it that sort of thing? I don't know.
That remains to be seen. I couldn't discern that. And I did look at this. I Googled this headline a couple different ways to see if other people had done articles. And there were, in fact, 3 other articles that were done, 2 out of state, 1 in Texas. And they basically said the same stuff. Like, they use this as a technique. It's not uncommon. Other states do it. You just don't hear about it. And, so there you go. It's Texas Rangers eliminate the use of... And you're like me, Tim. I immediately was like, you are getting very sleepy.
Well, that's like states that would use or we heard of law enforcement, because we'd had them on the show, right, that would use psychics or whatever, right, to try to solve murder cases or try to find, And I guess they would say that the UN would use those sort of people as well. We had one woman on said she used to do work for the UN.
Yep.
But I don't know. I guess it must work if they're using it.
If they're getting results, right?
Yeah. I like the outfits. If you were watching in the video, John had posted a picture. I mean, that was quite the...
they're sharp.
Very striking. It was almost like similar to me of what the...
Mounties?
Yeah, I was just going to say the Canadian Mounties in their red. But that's quite a sharp-looking... uniform, I think. I don't know about the yellow hat. Is that a yellow hat or is it?
They were just cowboy hats. Yeah.
I guess they're cadets or something, huh?
Mm-hmm. That picture was a class that was being newly initiated at the Texas State Capitol.
Could you have been a police officer, John?
No.
I don't think so.
No, I don't know that I'd have the patience. And these people have a lot of patience. I think they usually do. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. They see things we don't see.
Yeah. So, mine was a listener sent us this. Not that because I had something very different, kind of a business story. But then a listener sent us this, and I didn't know if it was a joke. I did read it. It did show up a couple of places, but I do think this was probably a study done by the company that is mentioned in here. But I'll read the headline: Singles, meaning single people, are pleasuring themselves more than ever, multiple times a day. In fact, during the event, study finds. So apparently single Americans have taken sex into their own hands since this event began, literally. A new survey claims that the average single is masturbating 3 times per day.
Wow. That's
amid
a lot.
all this isolation from the lockdown. Now, I asked somebody who was single, and he said he agreed. Our friend Rich apparently takes a lot of naps.
There you go.
Apparently, so this was, they talked to 2005 single Americans, and they found that 3 out of 10 are masturbating more than once a day. That's quite a bit, don't you think?
Yeah, times 5 or 5 or 7, depending if they take a 2-day weekend break.
So this self-pleasure has been on the uptick since March 2020, and nearly half are admitting that it's been more frequent since the event. And as I said, it was averaging 3 times a day for some of the folks. and that they've actually said that they've experienced some of the best orgasms during the pandemic that they've ever had because they said
Wow.
they've had more time to concentrate.
Now, who did the study? This is going to
So the
be the.
study's done by a company called One Poll on behalf of a group called Lube Life, Lubelife. Now, I think Triberry is going to contact them to see if they need any advertising help or consulting help. I clicked on the link. I guess maybe this was clickbait. I clicked on the link. Of course, it is a company, and it was quite funny. But they're a legitimate company that offers products. And so the survey says that over a quarter of the people also said that they were also consuming more pornography during the pandemic. Now, we've seen this.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Right. And other things. They also said that, let's see, that they've also been more open to discussing self-pleasure with friends and partners more so than they were before the event.
Okay. All right. That's I get that too, right?
Right. They said 60% said they don't foresee any change in their habit now when things change. I don't know about that.
Well, we'll see how things change, right? And the speed with which they change. Yeah. They might want to abandon that habit.
They said there, and then some actually have said that they've now decided that for many people, these are singles again that were active, that had active sex lives, that in some cases, 1 in 10, so 10% of them said they actually prefer the solo act versus hooking up with people. And they're probably going to do less hooking up, 10%, because they've actually thought this was a better thing.
You know, a friend of mine actually said something similar, and he was talking about it in terms of health. And he said, why would you risk like a hookup? And he go, during the event, he said, when if you just patience will get there. And he said, because 9 times out of 10, hooking up is ultimately unsatisfying. I don't, and when you think about it, he may have had a point. I don't know. Maybe for him it was like that. But so I could see this. I could definitely see this. I mean, it makes sense. You're isolated. You're alone, right? The whole thing.
Yeah, and there were a number of other stats, which I won't go into. But the one last one, which I thought was interesting, they said that when this is all over, they said 31% of the singles also said that their standards are now significantly lower when it comes to who they will have relations or sex with post the event.
Interesting. I wonder how that will change,
and
too.
They said those that have hooked up, 30% of them said that they've actually hooked up with somebody they normally would not have ever hooked up with before. So their standards are lower.
That's your takeaway. Okay.
So I don't know. So thank you, listener Randy, who sent this on. But I don't know. I thought this again. You and I have talked about companies that do a good job with PR. I mean, this is certainly a PR release.
And it gets
suppose.
it out there, right? Yeah.
But I don't know. I did ask. I asked our friend. I said, "Is this true?" And his roommate laughed and said, "Well, he takes a lot of naps, a lot more naps than he used to."
Yeah, I could confirm this. I've heard this from other folks that are saying,
really?
Yeah, this is, yeah.
So there you have it. So, hey, many of you know that Deep Discount's a partner of ours here on the Focus Group. If you head over to focusgroupradio.com, you can click on the Deep Discount logo and start shopping away. And we love Deep Discount for getting all types of media. And there's great new releases that come out each week. And there's actually a site-wide sale going on for the month of March. But there's John's going to share with you a recommendation from one of our friends at Deep Discount. And John, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, sir. So about a week and a half ago, I was fretting about what to watch. I didn't want to watch just anything on TV. I wanted to direct it. I wanted a movie as well. So I contacted our marketing partner at Deep Discount, Lauren, and she shot back a list that was fantastic. And at the top of it is a movie that's actually now available at Deep Discount, just came out, and on Blu-ray. And it's called... Promising Young Woman. It is fantastic. It is categorized as a revenge thriller. It's so much more than that. It stars Carey Mulligan as Casey Thomas, who had an interesting way of dealing with the traumatic experience she had in medical school, and it involved a good friend of hers. I think I'll leave it there just to say that it's well cast. Laverne Cox is in it. Obviously, Carey Mulligan, and many of you might remember her as being Daisy Buchanan in the Leonardo DiCaprio version of Great Gatsby done by Baz Luhrmann. She is fantastic. It's a wonderful movie. Bob and I did not know what we were getting into when we started watching it, and at the end of it, we were blown away. I think it's a good movie. I definitely recommend it. Pick it up, watch it, and as the Oscars roll around, we'll see if anything happens. There's some buzz around her performance, and I think she definitely does deserve something for this because she did a great job.
Could it also be considered a black comedy too?
Well, they do say that there's black humor, and it is.
Did you find yourself laughing at all at it?
There were moments.
I read the description. I've yet to watch it, and I want to. When I read the description, I thought, oh, okay, but then I thought was it heavy at all, or was it?
We found it to be, there is dark humor, and there are twists and turns, but the way the characters are portrayed, the way people are done, brilliantly done. I think I can't say enough about it. I think run, don't walk.
Yeah, I heard good things about it, so I'm excited to watch it.
Then Lauren said, if after you watch that, you need to watch a movie that was written by Joan Rivers. It was an ABC movie of the week. It was made for TV, and it stars Stockard Channing. And the movie's called The Girl Most Likely to ... Joan Rivers co-wrote this dark made-for-TV comedy, so it's a revenge comedy kind of thing, which stars Stockard Channing as Miriam Knight, a homely girl who's involved in a devastating car accident, and afterwards she comes out beautiful, and she goes on a rampage to, met out justice to those who were really, really mean to her. And Ed Asner's in it. Jim Backus is in it. Fred Grandy, he was Gopher on The Love Boat. I mean, it's
right.
a 70s. It's a movie that encapsulates that ABC movie of the week kind of thing. The cars. It's Blu-ray, so it looks like it was shot yesterday, but it's got all the clothing and stuff. We loved it. It even has the commercial breaks. You know how it would fade out and fade in, because time to go to the break. But Lauren recommended that one only because there are plot devices that Stockard Channing uses in that movie that show up in Promising Young Woman. And they're not the same film, but there's a lot of similarities in how Stockard Channing goes about gaining revenge on the people that hurt her. So there you have it, friends.
Wow.
It's a March site-wide sale at deep discount. So everything's on sale. We talked about a wonderful movie, Promising Young Woman, Blu-ray, Carey Mulligan, Laverne Cox. It's categorized as mystery, suspense, drama. It's so much more than that given the time we're in. And if you want a little bit of an enjoyment from the past, The Girl Most Likely to, starring Stockard Channing. So thank you, Deep Discount. We are going to take a super, super quick break. And when we return, we have Shop Talk and Business Birthday, so stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. The Focus Group, an entertaining look at the outside of business. For your convenience, listen anytime, anywhere, anyway, anyhow, and on anything. Got it? Head over to focusgroupradio.com and pick your poison. We're all business, except when we're not.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. Find out all about us at focusgroupradio.com, as well as our podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned. All of our media is housed there at our website, focusgroupradio.com. Mr. Nash, we're going to do our business birthday, and then we've got our shop talk later on. We're going to talk about some things you need to remove from your resume, or that you should remove from your resume, to modernize it, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But you said you had a little thing you wanted to share with us before we do the birthday.
Before a birthday, a little R.I.P., a rest in peace, to Lou Ottens, who is the inventor of the cassette tape. So he died at the age of 94 recently, as of last week, actually. And the Dutch reported this, so I'm assuming he died in the Netherlands. He worked for Philips, which is a Dutch company, a big audio company, and his job at the time, way back in the early 60s, was to take the reel-to-reel experience. Remember reel-to-reel tapes, those big, and get it as small as humanly possible. And he did that, and he created the cassette tape. And for him, he wanted to make music portable and accessible. And so that was his goal of creating the cassette tape. And it wasn't his favorite invention because of the sonic quality, but still, look what he did for all of us. We got the Walkman out of that. Got a lot of party mixtapes, right? Like
Did you have a Walkman? course
I had
you
a
did.
Walkman. Yeah, I had a number of them. I had one of the smallest ones they ever made. Some of the clunkier ones. Remember the athletic ones that were yellow that were like kind of
Yeah.
waterproof? They, you know. So he interestingly he was he moved on from there. He was one of the people on the team that created compact discs and created the standards for how audio was going to be transcribed to compact disc. And at the end of this piece here, it says, Ottens, the inventor of the cassette tape, was famously unsentimental about the invention that has accounted for some 100 billion sales, like 100 billion cassette tapes, according to NRC. In a career devoted to seeking higher fidelity and advanced technology, he dismissed tapes as primitive and prone to noise and distortion.
I often wonder, do you think these guys were, when they were developing the cassette tape, for instance, did they know far enough ahead to say, we know that this is just a step because eventually, do you think they would have foreseen something like these MP3 players, but knowing that at that time it was just too cost prohibitive to make it for the mass market? Because I know in the auto industry, way before the mass market of electric cars or hybrid cars, technology was there. It was just cost prohibitive to do it.
That's an interesting question, Tim, because, you know, when you think about it, so let's think about reel-to-reel, well, LP, reel-to-reel, 8-track cassette. What do they all have in common? And compact disc. They all spin, right? So I'm wondering, you know, when that shift came from storing information on a medium that had to actually move over a device that read it, you know, by spinning, whether it be the cassette tape or whatever, into this idea of solid state, like it's just data and it just, you know, like an MP3 file. They probably had some technology back then that did encode sound in that fashion, but I don't think it was ever ready for prime time, and it would have been too complex. And the other thing that did correspond to the rise of the MP3 is, in fact, the MP3 standard, which was able to condense a sound file down. You know, an uncompressed file from a compact disc, if you're listening to, they're big. You know, you were used to a song that might be 1 or 2 megabytes, but they're 23, 24 megabytes uncompressed. That's a lot of data to move around. So, yeah, I'm sure that I'm sure people like this guy, Ottens, foresaw the day when he could have crystal clear reproduction of sound like we have now. And these are just kind of in between things. But what a game changer.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I wonder if he got any money for it.
Oh, sure he did. Yeah, I mean, he had a career at Philips for the most of his career. He was spent at that company, and I'm sure that there was some incentive for some of the inventions. He had.
I don't know. You know, it's like those people at DuPont, right? You invent nylon and give them $20 bonus.
Yeah, a gift card to Chili's.
You know, it's like the guy who invented the Outback at Subaru. I think he probably got, you know, a lunch card, gift card. Save the company. Anyway, so our business birthday today.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So before I do the birthday, I was can you see this, Mr.
Rubber band, yeah.
Rubber band. So I was poking around the business birthday, and this had popped up. Stephen Perry. He was a 19th century British inventor and businessman. And but his corporation was the Perry and Company Rubber Manufacturer of London, and he made vulcanized rubber. But on this day, on March 17th, he received a patent for the rubber band. So he wasn't born today or anything, but it was just the patent for the rubber band happened today in 1845, which.
Okay, look at how much we use rubber bands, right?
Yeah, and I thought, you know, how do you patent a rubber band? I guess I don't know. Yeah. What do you say?
Maybe he patented the manufacturing technique, not
I
the
guess
concept.
so, vulcanized rubber.
Yeah.
I wonder if you still get money for it.
You
know, a friend of mine told me her great-great-grandfather invented the windshield wiper, and they still get a penny every year from every wiper sold. I don't know if I believe her.
A penny.
What do you think?
Could add up.
Yeah, a lot of wipers sold. So our business birthday today, Gottlieb Wilhelm Daimler. Is that how you say it, John? You know German, don't you?
Gottlieb Wilhelm Daimler.
Wilhelm. What did I say? Wilhelm?
Yeah, Wilhelm.
I'll just say Daimler. Gottlieb Daimler. He was born March 17th, 1834. Died March 6th in 1900 at 65. Was a German engineer, industrial designer, and industrialist. He was a pioneer of the internal combustion engine in automobile development. He invented the high-speed liquid petroleum-fueled engine and the first motorcycle. He was a lifelong business partner of Willem Maybach. There were
Really?
yeah, so they were the
So we
two
know where
inventors.
that's a car badge, actually. The Maybach is a high-end car, right?
High-end car with Mercedes,
Mm-hmm.
which yeah, so Maybach and Daimler, and so they invented these small engines, and they did an awful lot of engine work. And so they're, this is another one of these people. If you were National Geographic or you really wanted to get into industrialists or write about this age in the late 1800s, early 1900s of these industrialists, there were pages and pages and pages of the different types of engines and the things they did and how they had all these different sort of inclinations of building engines. But essentially what they did is they would make these engines smaller and smaller for use of, as we know today, of things on motorcycles, which is how they came up with the first motorcycle. They put this on a two-wheel product, but they used it on dirigibles. They used it on boats. So they kept changing these layouts of these horizontal cylinder engines and kept making them smaller and smaller and more powerful so that they can be used in a number of applications. And lo and behold, of course, the automobile. So they ended up selling their first automobile in 1892. And it was in their engine. They called it the Daimler's Dream was what they called the engine. But Maybach and Daimler were partners for many years developing these engines in Germany. And while they were working 60 miles away, there was another gentleman named Carl Benz, and he
Okay.
was working on very similar technology but different. And so Benz and Daimler, we all know if you know anything of auto, Daimler Benz or Mercedes Benz, and they actually sued one another. So Daimler sued Benz by saying that he had copied some of his technology in his engines to put in the Benz engines. This was in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And Daimler actually won the lawsuit. Daimler and Maybach won the lawsuit. And the two never talked. Daimler ended up dying, as I said, in 1900. The companies kind of cooperated and worked with one another. The partners Benz and Daimler and Maybach never met. But the companies did merge in 1926 and formed Daimler-Benz. Merged in 1926 in June and became Daimler-Benz, which was one of the two of the oldest automobile manufacturers in the world, which we know them now as Mercedes-Benz or Daimler-Benz. And they just in 2010 adopted the old logo or the original or the old tagline, or slogan, which was the original Daimler slogan from the 1800s. Nothing but the best. Apparently, I didn't know Mercedes was using that, but I can't say it in German. Das Best oder nicht. Something like that. I can't speak German. But anyway, so yeah, that's Gottlieb Daimler was the business birthday today. So happy birthday, Gottlieb.
So he is actually credited with the current, like the modern version of the internal combustion engine.
Yes.
Now, do you remember the Wankel engine by any chance? And wasn't there a car that was it Saab or some brand used that? It was a rotary something or other. It was different than the normal engine. The Wankel rotary or something.
Yeah, Saab had one. Mazda did a version of one. The Boxer, which
was there something about that was better, more powerful? I mean, there was something unique that people like flocked to. But since we're not using it now, I can't imagine it was as efficient as what he invented.
Yeah, it depends. Everybody wants to say that the Subaru engine, for instance, was very similar to what Porsche designed and BMW had for a while, and some other, which were these horizontally opposed engines. So the cylinders went, and they called it Boxer because they were horizontally opposed versus vertical. And they felt that had less vibration, is what you used in aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
But a little thing happened like World War II.
Yep.
So these German and Japanese companies could no longer make airplanes anymore as part of the war.
Agreements, yeah.
Right. So they made cars with them. So they change these airplane factories into car factories, and that's why Subaru and Porsche and some of these Japanese and German cars had these horizontally opposed engines and said they were better, less vibration, blah blah blah. So you could argue what's better just on the technology. I actually do think the horizontally opposed engines that Porsche and Subaru use are better because they were aircraft engines, and you don't want that to cop out, do you?
I was just going to say, the minute you said they're aircraft engines, there's a reliability index there, and there's even down to the specking of the parts. You know, the metal fatigue, the whole bit. Like, yeah, I agree with you. You would want that.
When you want to step on it, right? When your plane takes off, you floor it, right?
You want to know the machinery can handle acceleration, deceleration, and constant speed. Yeah.
I'm not so sure that's still the case. Although I used to sell, when I was a district manager, every once in a while I would sell engines. I would sell engines for people that were making light aircraft, and they would use the Subaru engines to fly little airplanes.
Their own like home brewed aircraft,
yeah,
right? Wow,
that's fascinating. Make their own little airplane. But so anyway, happy birthday, Daimler.
It's a very cool birthday.
Yeah. So when we teased the show at the beginning, we talked about dusting up your resume, but this was an article that we found. It says you need to remove these 6 items from your resume ASAP. And so this was, they're talking about with the event and a number of things, but it's always good to revisit your resume. John and I struggle with this a lot. I used to be a recruiter. I used to do a lot of interviewing, even when I was in corporate America. And I used to, the resume to me was always a necessary evil. I think everybody exaggerates on them. I always thought they were ridiculous, quite frankly, but yeah, it's a necessary evil. But there's 6 things they say that you should remove or at least fix or change on your resume. So what was the first one they mentioned?
First one was paragraphs, literally just paragraphs. While a resume is your platform to show what you've done and can do, the author of this piece claims that writing paragraphs is a no-go. Recruiters spent a very brief amount of time checking to see if you are the right candidate, so make sure your resume's format is bulleted and concise enough to quickly read and understand. Leave out any unnecessary jargon or miscellaneous information. Agreed. I have spoken to many friends who have given me advice on modern resumes. That's clearly not what I was taught. The whole paragraph thing was like, oh boy. So yeah, it really does come down to bullet point language. Make your point as quickly as possible. Let's say you were a director of research at a pharmaceutical company, and it's like you oversaw. Basically, it's did this, like bullet points, and then you move on from there. So that was not a bad. I think that I agree with that one. Basically, do you too?
Yeah, and I guess with so many, the other trend that seems to be happening is so many of these resumes aren't even read by a human anymore, right?
Machine learning. Yeah, machines read it, and then they look for key phrases. They dump you into one pile or the other. So
if you bullet pointed, it might.
And by the way, we should bookmark that, and we're going to come back to what Tim just said about machines reading your resume. There's a couple of pieces of advice I want to give about PDF versus Word doc versus highly designed. So what's our second one here?
The second one is your full address. Writing your full address in your resume is antiquated, full of privacy concerns in this day and age, and unnecessary, they say. I initially disagreed with this because I thought there were sometimes if you were, say you were living in Chicago and you were applying for a job in New York. Now, you may have a significant other or you're planning to relocate to New York. I would say put a New York address on there so that they don't feel like they're going to have to pay for a relocation or that you could interview quickly. So in that case, I would say either leave it off or use an address. So I agreed with it at that point. But then when I read this further, it said, just put a city and state. Mm-hmm. So I do agree with that. I have a number of friends. I had a friend that was relocating from California to the East Coast. And as soon as he took California off his resume and used a Philadelphia address, he got calls nonstop on his resume. For 4 months, he got no calls when he had California on his resume applying for jobs out here. So you should either try to do I think you should have a local address on there if you're applying for something. That's just me, but it says not to put, don't put 123 Main Street on there. No. Springfield, Ohio.
And
So it was
that corresponds
number
with my learning as well, by the way. It's just city,
Yeah.
state, phone number, email address, and people will figure it out from there. The number 3 was dates, other than work history. So this I thought was kind of something we all kind of knew by now. An unfortunate byproduct of the hiring process often comes with what's ageism, basically. The minute somebody could figure out your age, they can have either a conscious or an unconscious bias and say, no, that's not what we want. Lower age is favored socially for most of the workforce. It doesn't have to come at your expense, meaning you don't have to trip yourself up by putting something in the resume that could give somebody an idea of, that would lead them down that path. So stay away from using dates other than work history, and that would be including but not limited to the year of your graduation from school. Certificates or qualifications. The qualification of the certificate you earned is sufficient, not the year or day you got it. And what matters the most is that you have them, as I just said, not the date you earned them. Leave them off the list. Leave them off when you list items above that on your resume. So just critical dates of start date, end date, and leave it at that. And I totally agree with this one as well, because I'm just not sure, especially nowadays with the event, how those date things are going to figure into stuff.
But I've done this, don't you, if somebody does leave off the year of graduation,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't it have the exact other effect as well? They left it off. They must be old.
So I've seen resumes with people who are maybe in the late 20s, early 30s, where they will have their date of graduation. And then and you're right, I think there's a line somewhere in the sand. And if you don't have your date of graduation, you could look at the work experience someone had. And if someone's had like 30 years experience, you're dealing with a candidate that is clearly going to be in their 40s or 50s, right? Because
right, or you take off three or four jobs and
exactly.
Get rid of 15 years. I mean, you do a little bit of everybody does a little forensic dive, right? So you do figure it out. But that one was tough. Number 4 was your lies. Most people are indifferent to their capabilities, but they essentially said resumes are notoriously known for content that inadvertently stretches the truth by people eager to impress and subsequently earn a position. There's been only 1 or 2 cases where I actually read somebody's resume of somebody that I did know well and laughed out loud. And I thought if they went into an interview and actually somebody questioned them, they'd get in trouble real quick. And I thought, you're just setting yourself up. But I didn't know I'm not so sure. Do you think people lie that much on their resumes? This one I had a little bit of an issue with, because I thought if you do go in there and blatantly lie about certain things, you might say, instead of I increased business 12%, maybe it was 9%. But if you go in there and just say that you did something that you didn't do, and then you get asked about it and you obviously get lost pretty quick.
My example with that would be the following. I was told once when it came to resumes and stuff like that I should put in things like grew the business from this number to this number. And
right.
So if you take the time to figure out how much you're doing of that nature, you better remember your math, because if they're looking at the piece of paper and they're saying, well, you claim you grew it from here to here, that's where I think you could get tripped up. But I just think people will say and do things. So I think they're basically just saying, don't lie. It's a lot harder to lie because you have to keep all these facts and figures in your head. But
what does Judge Judy always say? If you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory.
Yeah, exactly. She's right. And our last, and this came from the Ladders, by the way. Tim pulled this article, and it's timely. Or one of the last ones, 5, is format inconsistencies. When your resume has format inconsistencies, it makes it extremely difficult for recruiters to read and follow along. Plus, it looks unprofessional. Their recommendation is, if you're in Microsoft Word, for example, Calibri 11 point or Times New Roman 12. 1-inch margin all around. Highlight important details, use bolding only for titles and subtitles, and make sure you're using appropriate spacing and indentation. And this goes back to something Tim said earlier that I said bookmark this because I'll bring it up again. The more designed the resume, the more danger you have of it being ignored. So machines do read these things for most big companies. They do recommend a horizontal, like just a normal, plain, ugly format. I call it horizontal, left to right. Don't worry about the columns and stuff. And the less formatting, the better it's read by a machine. I know it sounds crazy.
Really? I didn't realize that.
Less formatting.
So if you
better.
have little blocks and
Pictures
and bolding and italics and this and that, it trips it up.
Yep. I know.
Really?
I know. Yeah. So
all that money we spent getting our resumes done was for naught.
A lot of it would have been lost by the machines. Yeah. La machina.
That was a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Could have just said yes.
Yes. There you go.
And number 6, salary information. I don't think I've ever seen anybody put this on
Nope.
there. Maybe they've done
Never.
it in a cover letter if it was asked. But it says, including your salary information is a cardinal sin on a resume, as it just will justify the employer to offer you a lower potential salary than if they didn't know, I suppose. Yeah, I'm not so sure why you would even put that on there. I guess in a job application they ask, or they might ask you what your salary is. And although some places now are saying that you're not even allowed to ask that anymore. I know
No.
in New York State, I think they've stopped that, right? You can't ask. Can you ask somebody's salary?
No, I believe you can make an offer, but the spelunking expedition of what were you making before, I think that is technically what you're saying. I think you can't do that. Yeah.
Huh. I wondered. I was wondering about this one too. Well, the pet peeve I have with this in general, and this actually was in the comment section, was that people were aggravated that when they hand in their resume for a job, then they also get asked to fill out applications, which is all redundant because it's usually on the resume. And people were complaining about that. Why do I have to hand in a resume if you're asking me to fill out an application with all the same information on it?
Oh yeah, I hear it all the time. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. I hear it from friends who, and it is what it is. It's a whole shtick, and everybody who's listening, who's gone through this or is going through it now, you get it. So, those are our tips here for improving your resume. Quickly, no paragraphs. Get rid of your full address. Make sure dates are only for your work history. No lies. Watch the lies. Format correctly, and leave off salary information because that's going to give somebody an excuse to not offer you what they want. So there you go. That was a good shop talk. We want to thank you for joining us today here on the Focus Group. Check out TFG Unbuttoned, our Tuesday podcast, 20 minutes long, 3 stories available. Also, where all fine podcasts are stored. And focusgroupradio.com, of course, has everything you need to know about us and all our media. And a very big thank you to Deep Discount. March site-wide sale. The movie that I highly recommend that their head of marketing loved as well, Promising Young Woman, starring Carey Mulligan. There you go, folks. Everybody stay safe, mask up, and we'll see you in the new week.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.